The Revenge of the Crimson Petals. High atop the jagged cliffs of Santorini, those sheer volcanic drops that draw hordes of American influencers chasing golden hour selfies against the endless Aegean, the kind of backdrop that ends up on every Pinterest board from Brooklyn to Beverly Hills, perch the Villa Blue Mist, a vision of Cycladic perfection frozen in time, the sort of place that screams old money to anyone flipping through Architectural Digest. It was the sweltering summer of 1968, when the Mediterranean sun beat down like a tyrant's hammer, turning the whitewashed walls into blinding mirrors that reflected not just light but the hollow souls within. The air hung thick with a briny tang of salt, the earthy bite of olive oil sizzling on summer grills, and the unspoken sins that seeped from every crack in the stucco. Behind this postcard facade, curated for wealthy expats from New York's Upper East Side and Palm Beach socialites seeking a taste of authentic Europe, festered a house rotten with old-world cruelty, a labyrinth of marble corridors echoing with the ghosts of indentured labor and unchecked privilege. Gregorio Salazar, the iron-fisted patriarch and shipping magnate whose fortune was built on rusting freighters hauling cargo across the Atlantic from Piraeus to ports in Miami and New Orleans, held absolute court from his prized terrace. He was a bear of a man, barrel-chested, with a face weathered like teak from decades barking orders at deckhands, hands scarred by salt spray and the gold signet ring he wore like a badge of conquest. There, surrounded by terracotta pots brimming with vibrant crimson bougainvillea that clawed at the stucco like desperate fingers pleading for mercy, and scattered with faded blue cushions battered by relentless salty gales that carried whispers from the sea below, he indulged his basest appetites without remorse. His favorite prey was Rosa, the wide-eyed 19-year-old housemaid from a nameless mountain hamlet in the Peloponnese, where goats outnumbered people and dreams were as scarce as rain. She'd traded her shepherd girl's life for promises of city wages that evaporated like morning mist, arriving at the villa with calloused palms and olive eyes brimming with fragile hopes of sending money home to her ailing mother. How much degradation can a single soul swallow before it turns to poison itself? Rosa's days blurred into an unrelenting grind of servitude that would break the strongest spirit. Dawn awakenings to haul seawater from the cliffs for polishing silver candelabras that gathered dust unseen, scrubbing veined marble floors on hands and knees until her stockings tore and her knees wept blood in crimson rivulets, ironing linens monogrammed with the Salazar crest until her fingers blistered raw, and preparing feasts of grilled octopus, feta drizzled in thyme honey, and endless carafes of ouzo for guests who treated her like invisible air. Gregorio called her my wild rose, a mocking endearment hissed as he cornered her amid the bougainvillea's thorny embrace, his breath a foul cocktail of anise liqueur and entitlement. His hands roamed freely, leaving bruises she hid under long sleeves pieced from discarded uniforms, violations that left her hollowed out, staring at the sea as if it might rise to wash her clean. Dona Carmen, his brittle wife with a face carved from Parian marble and a heart forged from flint, knew every sordid detail. She'd caught glimpses through half-open shutters, heard the muffled cries blending with the waves. Yet she averted her kohl-lined eyes, clutching rosaries smuggled from Vatican gift shops while festooning her neck with pearls harvested from the same seas Gregorio's ships plundered. God sees all, she'd murmur to her reflection, but her prayers were as performative as her charity galas. The children were no better, molded in their father's image. The elder son, Pablo, aped his leers with frat boy smirks honed at university in Athens, where he'd learned to chase skirts and dodge debts. The younger, Tomas, a petulant teen who kicked over her mop buckets for sport and once ground a cigarette into her freshly mopped floor just to watch her scrub again. And Ines, the porcelain doll daughter destined for a strategic marriage to some shipping heir in Monaco, who sneered at roses. Peasant hands while idly splashing imported French paints on canvases, dreaming of her own Paris salon. Nights brought no respite, only torment. Rosa huddled in her attic cot beneath the rafters, where the villa's creaks mimicked accusatory whispers and rats skittered like conspirators. She dreamed vividly of the Aegean rising in a biblical wrath to swallow the terrace whole, blue cushions afloat like drowned battle flags, bougainvillea wilting into the churning abyss, the family screaming as white walls crumbled to chalk. But morning yanked her back to the kitchen's stifling heat, where she diced onions into submission until her tears formed a private river, mingling with the sweat beading on her sun-browned brow and the ache in her bones. What if she spoke out? Who would believe a girl from the hills over the Salazars, whose name opened doors from Monaco to Manhattan, whose lawyers could bury scandals deeper than the sea? The breaking point simmered through weeks of escalating horrors. A guest's forgotten cufflinks accidentally pinned to her uniform as punishment for a spilled drop of wine, Inessa's tantrum-fueled slap leaving a welt across her cheek, Gregorio's midnight summons growing rougher, his ring drawing blood one night as he pinned her against the doorframe. One more violation, and then what? A scream swallowed by the wind, or justice in crystalline form. The breaking came on an August afternoon when the heat shimmered like a fever dream, distorting the horizon until cliffs and sea blurred into one merciless blue. The Aegean lapped hungrily far below, as if tasting blood in the salt-laden air. Gregorio, bloated from a long lunch of spit-roasted lamb, saganaki flaming at table, and endless refills of anise liqueur that left his eyes bloodshot, seized her wrist with vice-like grip and hauled her to the blue cushions, their fabric gritty with blown sand and the residue of prior sins. His laugh boomed like thunder off the cliffs, shaking loose crimson petals that fluttered down like confetti from hell's own party. "Stay still, flower," he growled, fumbling drunkenly at her apron with the clumsiness of a man who owned everything, and everyone he touched. But Rose's silence had crystallized into something sharper, unyielding. Nestled deep in her pocket, wrapped in a rag to avert accidental death, was a small vial of arsenic, pilfered weeks earlier from the wine cellar's rat poisons amid the dusty racks of vintage Retsina, its white crystals as pure and unyielding as the fury she'd nurtured through countless violations, fermented in the dark like contraband wine. One more time, and the scales tip. Deliverance in a sip, or eternal silence. He finished with a satisfied grunt, sprawling back like a deposed god on his throne of faded azure, wiping sweat from his brow. Rosa steadied her trembling hands, fetched a crystal glass from the wrought iron side table, and poured water from a pitcher cooled in the stone cistern, watching the surface ripple like a lie taking shape. "For the heat, senor," she murmured, her voice a silken thread over steel. He guzzled it without a glance, smacking his lips with greedy pleasure, oblivious to the faint bitter tang masked by his palate's ruin from years of excess. The poison unfurled like a slow, deliberate tide justice long denied now clawing free, first a guttural belch that echoed unnaturally off the cliffs, rattling the bougainvillea pots, then retching that bent him double, his body convulsing in violent arcs that toppled a nearby pot, spilling soil and crimson petals in a chaotic tableau. He clawed at his throat with those scarred hands, eyes bulging fish-like toward the indifferent horizon where his ships once conquered waves, before collapsing face-first into the cushions, foam bubbling from his lips like sea froth laced with death. The terrace fell silent save for the distant crash of waves, as if the sea itself held its breath. Dona Carmen discovered the corpse hours later, as twilight bled bruised purple across the terrace and the first stars pricked the sky like accusatory eyes. She shrieked, a sound that curdled the blood of the groundskeeper tending olives below. "Heart attack, too much indulgence, the poor fool," pronounced the village doctor, a sallow man with a palm perpetually greased by thick envelopes of drachmas, his stethoscope more prop than tool. The family performed their public grief with theatrical flair, black veils fluttering for the women during the procession, somber imported suits for the men, a lavish funeral winding down to the harbor where Gregorio's fleet bobbed mockingly under strings of lanterns. Eulogies praised his visionary spirit, champagne flowed at the wake. In private shadows, however, Ines cornered her mother in the dimly lit salon, voice a venomous whisper. "That mountain slut had something to do with it, I swear." Her eyes were too calm at the wake, too knowing. But suspicion fizzled without proof, drowned in inheritance squabbles, legal fees, and imported champagne that numbed the edges of doubt. Rosa played her part flawlessly, head bowed in feigned mourning as she scoured the terrace under starlight, the mop slosh the only requiem. The cushions still bore faint stains, sweat, vomit, accusation, that no amount of lye or elbow grease could fully erase. Now the hardest part, vanishing the evidence, or risk the noose. By midnight, under the cover of a new moon that cloaked the cliffs in velvet black, she dragged his cooling bulk from the sofa with superhuman grit, inching it across the tiles on a bedsheet stained with his final fluids. 3 paces north, 2 east, beneath the largest bougainvillea pot, she'd measured it obsessively in her mind. She clawed a shallow grave with her nails and a garden trowel dulled from rose pruning. The earth was soft, conspiratorial, swallowing his bulk with wet, sucking sounds as she piled soil, petals, and denial atop. By cockcrow, the terrace gleamed pristine once more, a crimson shroud hiding the patriarch's inglorious, worm-eaten end. Impunity bought with blood, or would the villa's stones cry out for retribution? Rosa's final act was her masterpiece, a testament etched for posterity. Slipping into Inessa's studio, a cluttered sanctum of shelves groaning under untouched oil smelling of linseed and neglect, canvases stacked like unfulfilled ambitions, she claimed brushes caked with dried cerulean, a battered palette, and a forgotten canvas warped from sea air. Under the iron lantern's wavering glow that cast long shadows like accusing fingers, her hand shook not from fear but exultation as she birthed the terrace anew on the rough weave. Pristine white walls glowing ethereal under imagined moonlight, the wooden door cracked open like an invitation to Judgment Day, blue cushions rumpled as if freshly disturbed by ghostly hands, terracotta pots lined sentinel still like mute witnesses to atrocity, and beyond it all, the sea gnashing its obsidian teeth against the cliffs in eternal fury. But genius and damnation hid in the crimson petals, using indelible ink mixed with her own blood pricked from a thorn for unbreakable permanence. She traced the exact contours of her left forearm's secret tattoo. Etched months prior with needle and hearth soot in a solitary rage under that same lantern, it mapped the crime. 3 paces N of sofa, 2E, under big pot. Invisible to casual eyes or gaslight flicker, it awaited ultraviolet revelation or the paranoia of the guilty conscience. At its pulsing core, RSV Rosa Salvada Vengada, like a papal malediction carved in flesh and oil. She hung it in the grand salon amid crystal chandeliers and ancestral portraits, posing as a condolence gift from the devoted staff, then boarded a pre-dawn fishing skiff captained by a one-eyed sailor who'd smuggled worse than a runaway maid. Her silhouette dissolved into Aegean mist as the villa slumbered, oblivious. The Salazars cherished the naive folk art as a quirky heirloom, propping it above the mantel for guests to coo over during cocktail hours. Time gnawed onward like relentless tides. Carmen shriveled into widow's catatonia, muttering to empty chairs. Pablo gambled the shipping fleet into bankruptcy amid bad bets on oil tankers. Tomas fled to America, chasing Wall Street mirages that turned to fool's gold. Ines married a titled Frenchman who bankrupted her dowry on roulette, then divorced her for a younger model. The villa traded hands through real estate flips, lavish summer rentals for tech bros from Silicon Valley escaping burnout, boutique hotel pipe dreams that fizzled under zoning wars, until 2025, when it devolved via a contested will to Lucia Salazar, Gregorio's great-great-granddaughter. Raised in Brooklyn brownstones amid her single mother's faltering art dealings and adjunct gigs at NYU, Lucia was no fragile heiress sipping rose by infinity pools. 30, fierce as a storm surge, with a Columbia PhD in forensic art history, specializing in hidden layer pigments from Caravaggio's chiaroscuro to cyber-age forgeries peddled on dark web auctions. She'd consulted for MoMA on a lost Titian that proved a 19th century scam, her scalpel-sharp mind attuned to lies and brushstrokes. Santorini called her like a siren's curse during a sabbatical, a professional pilgrimage to study Byzantine icons, but the villa, and its painting, claimed her on day one of inheritance. The canvas ensnared her instantly, hanging like a predator in wait. Why the amateurish petal dabs amid otherwise masterful shadow play? Why did the cushions blue deepen to bruise purple at sunset, as if absorbing light wrong, drinking in the dying day? She dissected it daily with magnifying loupe and spectral analysis apps on her phone, the door hinge skewed like forced entry by desperate hands, pot shadows defying solar logic, pointing accusatorily inward, a faint asymmetry in the bougainvillea clusters that itched like encrypted code beneath the surface. Storm season crashed in hard, Santorini's tempests flinging lightning bolts like vengeful Olympian spears, winds howling dirges through villa vents, and on one such howling, blackout night with power flickering like a dying pulse, Lucia unpacked her forensic UV lamp. The blacklight wand, battle-tested on multimillion-dollar Rembrandts, unmasked as Hong Kong hustles, hummed to life. Crimson petals ignited like flayed arteries under surgical glare, birthing the map in neon revelation, serpentine lines mimicking taut human skin pulled over bone, precise coordinates etched with surgical hate, RSV pulsing at core like a venomous heartbeat from the grave. Rosa, who was she? A servant's vow, or a virus encoded in oil? Obsession propelled Lucia through sleepless nights. Village ledgers in the dusty municipal archive yielded a scrubbed 1968 death notice buried in faded mimeographs. A gnarled, one-legged fisherman at the harbor tavern recalled the hill girl with fire eyes who ghosted post-patriarcha's heart attack, trading vague details for shots of her key. Cross-referenced shipping logs from Gregorio's manifests hinted at unexplained crew vacancies around that fatal August. Dawn broke with iron purpose, pickaxe biting terrace earth beneath the replica wrought iron sofa, shovel flashing in first light. Soil parted like guilty flesh yielding to truth. For feet down, Gregorio's skeleton grinned up through roots, gold signet ring glinting accusatory, fabric tatters embroidered with a faded Salazar crest clinging like spectral laundry, a woman's long black lock coiled by the skull like Medusa's final curse, coarse, unwashed, unmistakably plebeian. Rosa's wrath transcended graves, a malediction woven into the villa's very stones. As Lucia knelt amid the reeking pit, gagging on the peat-sweet rot, a sirocco gale, impossibly hot, reeking of distant wildfires and brimstone, erupted from nowhere, uprooting pots in a crimson blizzard that buried evidence like ritual sacrifice. Freak meteorological whim, or the villa's stones conspiring in animistic rage. Dreams invaded her fitful sleep, Rosa's spectre framed in the canvas door, lithe and unbowed, crooning in a voice like wind through thorns, burn it down, every lying stone, every stolen breath. Lucia bolted awake to acrid smoke tendrils curling from outlets, choking the air. Bougainvillea vines, real rampant ones snaking through century-old villa cracks, had impossibly climbed to impale the painting from behind, roots pulsing like exposed veins, thorns dripping sap like blood. The map aglow brighter than neon sin, cushions wept fresh crimson rivulets tracing down the frame, blood or fermented betrayal from the earth below. 911 equivalents queued on her phone, Greek police, archaeologists, a Times art critic contact, but fate, or Rosa's undying spite, intervened first. The iron lantern sparked with unnatural ferocity, flames birthed in its antique wiring leaped like liberated furies. Firefighters from Fira cited faulty antique electrics exacerbated by salt corrosion, a flimsy excuse swallowed by locals who muttered of the Salazar Malocchio over coffee in Cliffside Caffeinians. The inferno was surgical, targeting the terrace with hellish precision, whitewash charred to skeletal black, cushions vaporized into plumes of spectral blue smoke, bougainvillea fueling a pyre of blood-red embers that lit the night like a Viking funeral. The sea below thundered ovation, waves crashing higher as if applauding the purge. Dawn clawed over the horizon to reveal ruins like ancient Pompeii redux, twisted rebar, ash drifts, the villa's bones exposed. Yet the canvas endured, unscathed in the ash-choked heart, evolved with a final flourish. Door framed sharp, Rosa's raven-winged silhouette smirked triumphant, eyes gleaming with the satisfaction of century-settled scores. Lucia emerged scarred but alive, lungs seared, psyche fractured. She auctioned the relic via Christie's anonymous online bid in a fevered haze, proceeds vanishing into therapy and a one-way ticket stateside. Swearing off Greece for good amid nightmares of crimson maps, she resettled in a Seattle loft, curating virtual exhibits on cursed canvases. Rosa's toll, one villa reduced to cinders, but infinite echoes rippling outward? Urban legends migrate stateside now, whispered in Hampton's seafront galas, Malibu deck soirees overlooking Pacific swells, Miami penthouse brunches with ocean views. The painting haunts them all, always terrace perched like a sentinel, luring art-savvy heirs with promises of beauty. Bathe it in UV light, grab a cheap forensic kit from Amazon, they say, and the petals hiss eternal. Dig deep, unearth the unswallowed, let the crimson truth bloom.